starts growing and I start bringing in clients, and it takes me 6 months to get to 6 figures and to be invited to speak in LA. And it was just like more than I could have ever imagined. And what happened? I dropped it all and I sabotaged it all because I didn't think that I was deserving it. Because deep down internally, I was still that little girl that grew up with absolutely nothing.
Are you looking to level up your business and/or simply crack the code on how to shift from self-employed to CEO of your business? Wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, it's never too early or late to scale, level up, and shift up. Hi, I'm Kelly McNicoll, host of the Shift podcast. I'm a business coach, consultant, online educator, brand strategist, and marketing expert. And I'm genuinely so glad you are here. On the Shift podcast, we will share the real talk behind what CEOs need to know and take action on to grow, scale, be and remain relevant and successful, and to help others of you shift from that self-employed grind to leaning into and holding that position as the CEO of your company. So let's dig in and start taking massive action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I am very delighted to welcome two guests today, Leni Cavazos and Kelsey. Leni is also known as the retreat planner. She has curated over 80 hybrid events, from private retreats and masterclasses to conferences and immersive experiences. She's had the tremendous opportunity of collaborating with talent from across the globe. Past collaborators include leaders like Joe Dispenza and others in such awe-inspiring places as the pyramids in Egypt, if you can imagine. So welcome to the show, Leni, again. And Kelsey is the CEO and founder of The New Feminine. She's a success coach. And also, I should mention the Sophia Initiative, where she spends her days teaching people how they can overcome the limitations of who they've been to create the life and business they've always wanted. As a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and someone who developed her own life coaching technique, Kelsey has an uncanny ability to help people see what's holding them back from what they truly desire. She says her most profound mission is to help people become the most whole and highest expressions of themselves. So welcome to you both. Leni, why don't we start with you? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, maybe share a few juicy tidbits of some of your most recent kind of retreats that you planned, or some favorite tidbits, anything like that.
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm so happy to be here again with you, Kelly. And I think it's such a pleasure, to meet with people like-minded people who are interested in growing their businesses in different ways and just exploring the new possibilities, like in this life, we are able to create our wildest dreams. And that's exactly what I do, right? I have created my wildest dreams into reality, and I'm helping other people do the same with the retreat planner. So what I do is really, it sounds simple maybe, but it's not really, because I do bring quite a few interesting facts into the play. So when I'm planning retreats for either myself or other people, then I'll always make sure that there is a purpose behind, right? So for me, this is super important. And this is something that I have found through the paths in my life, that if you don't have a purpose and you're not really connected with what you're doing, it's not going to work out. As simple as that. Like the energy has to be there, and you can ask anything you want, the universe, God, you name it. You can call it Sophia, you can call it, doesn't matter the name that you are. But if you don't put action in place with it, then nothing really moves forward. So for me, there is this combination of like really creating your vision and your wildest dreams and see how they would look like, and then actually bringing the action into it. So this is what I do with all the retreats and events that I have planned throughout. The idea is that when you come out of this event, you have something that you have gained from it. It's not just another nice experience. It was not just another sound healing experience when you went, you laid down, and then you came out and like, oh, I feel relaxed. It's the idea is to create experiences that are transformational. So, and I think this is such a beautiful thing that we have as humans. We were able to transform and to recreate ourselves into whatever we desire. And when it comes to retreats, I really bring it into the conversation in every single thing I do. So whenever I'm thinking about how am I gonna like organize something, even if it's the nitty-gritty details of like, which water do you serve? Do you serve bottled waters? It's in plastic or glass? All these kind of things. Is you think about what's the intention behind it. Okay, people need to be hydrated, fine, but do you do something beyond that? So when they're drinking the water, it's actually probably like maybe even structured water. So I don't know if you heard that there's this amazing scientist, Gerald Pollack, that talks about the 4th phase of water, and you have like easy water and so anyway, I'm not gonna go into the whole conversation because that's like an hour thing. But water is so important in our bodies, and we can use structured water to create things, and then we repurpose things. Sometimes for some events, I use water that has been vibrated into different frequencies. So there is water that has been vibrated with classical music. So if I'm trying to get people into a very creative mode, I'm going to give them this water. I'm not just going to give them tap water, So it's bringing this intentionality into absolutely everything I do, right? So, and I just basically create whatever I'm looking for, So like, I will tell you the story about like this private retreat that I organized for Joe Dispenza, right? So this was something that at some point when I was in my spiritual path, I realized that I was missing something. I was missing this bridge between spirituality and science, because my brain is hyperactive, like it just flares up with ideas. And I needed to give him a level of understanding of what was happening for it to actually kind of quiet down and let me do my meditation and really go into deeper spaces. And I was like, okay, this is the link that I'm missing in my life. So one day I was just walking in the aisle of the supermarket. Okay, so nothing fancy. I was just walking, and I usually do very well in supermarkets for actually manifestation in a way. And I was just like walking in the aisle, and I just thought, and it was a very simple thought. I said like, I want to do some work with Dr. Joe Dispenza so I can create this bridge between my mind and my heart. That was it. I didn't say anything else, it was just very simple. It was really coming from my heart. This is what I wanted. 3 weeks later, someone comes to me. She doesn't even know me, okay? Like she met me a couple of times before, but she really didn't know my work or anything like this. And she just came and she was like, hey, do you want to plan this Joe Dispenza retreat with me? And I'm like, yes. I was not even thinking about asking it as a gig. I was more thinking of me attending a retreat. But imagine I got to plan the retreat. I got to attend the retreat, and so many people from across the world came for this event. It was like a 70 people, very small container. I had people like texting me all day long, please, I want to come, can I have a ticket? I'm like, I'm sold out, like there's no space, It was just crazy. It was just like, it kind of felt like a dream for a second, like when I was like, okay, well, this is happening, And then it just like, for me, I was so passionate about the purpose and the project and what would actually bring into my personal life as well, that I was just like, my body was like, yes. I didn't even think about it. I was not even thinking about the money that I would make or how much I would charge for these. I was just like, yes, like this is exactly what I asked for, even with me not fully knowing exactly what I was asking for. Yeah, I think this is one of, I've planned many retreats, but I think this one, like when it comes to like really creating your future and your life and your present, it's such a key message for me, right? And now I'm working on a symposium for sound and electromagnetic waves. And me, myself, besides all my businesses and like everything that I do, I am a sound healer. So I love sound and vibration, and it has taken me through so many difficult paths in my life in a very beautiful way with like softness and compassion and just like beautiful, like sound just guides you through it, it's kind of like water for me, and so now this just came into my field as well. I was just like, I really like this. And then someone was like, hey, do you want to plan this symposium? And it's not even a symposium anymore. Now it's a community of scientists, futurists, entrepreneurs, and people in the sound business who are part of this, So we're growing even a community for people to share ideas and to create new things happening. So for me, I believe that this is why my path into retreat planning just happened. And this was exactly the way it was supposed to be. And I'm just doing something that I'm super passionate about. And I'm also helping other people fulfill their dreams. So yes, that's kind of a little bit about what I do at the retreat planner. And yeah, so how we create events on site, and then like the coaching part where I guide people when they want to find what's the best way for them to create their next retreat. And they want to run it on their own, or they have a VA or someone who can help them with all the little details. And I come more into the strategic part.
Yeah. And I love that you offer all of those things, because I think sometimes, I know when I was first talking to you, when we first met, I was just envisioning that you actually did like all of that planning and stuff, because we've touched on the fact that, you plan things sometimes and it's around sound, or even right down to the color of the foods and the courses and when they're coming in and how that ties in, and all those little fine details. But then you can also do this other piece where you can basically kind of coach somebody through how to create and do their own retreat, and really give them those things to think about for themselves, right? So that they're not missing the things, and probably in a very succinct way too, almost like a checklist, because there's lots of things we don't think about to even ask sometimes. So I think it's great that you can offer both of those things. Because I know also too, you've expressed before, you called it that when people come into these retreats, that you want to help create something where people leave feeling really marked by it, that there's something that's imprinted in their kind of soul or whatever it is that creates kind of this shift and momentum for them, whether, no matter how small or how large it is, any one of those little bits of shifts or imprintings from those experiences is really what you strive for, right? So we're always thinking about trying to make a difference for at least one, right?
Yes. Sometimes it's just putting, like, for me, it's just like putting a grain of salt, right? And for me, when I give like sessions, like for people and more like strategy, what I do is I create a creative container. So we work with like meditations, we work with abundance blockages, we work with everything that can be actually keeping you away from really fulfilling your dream about doing a retreat, or even to the point where we go and I actually go into the process of like seeing, is this really what you want to do? Like, are you ready for it or not? Because sometimes it is also possible that there's still work that needs to be done prior to actually launching a retreat. So you really serve your retreaters. I love to call them retreaters, no? But like, so you actually serve your retreaters up to your best possibility, So really we go very deep. We go, and this is like for me, the creative container is the most important part. And then the actual, like, then if I go and I run it for you, then this is just like an easy part for the technicalities and just for people to be very like relaxed about it, no? And for everything to run very, very smoothly. But the important part is this creative container.
Yeah. And I think it's important what you touched on too, right? Like, because we talked about this a bit before the pre-show, right? It's about being open and inviting the things and being ready for the things when they come. And so all of those life experiences that we think like, oh, you can't look at them, or that was wasted time, or had I found this sooner, you weren't ready to find this or do this sooner than you are today. And so same thing with, I imagine, is it the right time for the retreat? Whether it's for you, for your clients, whatever that is, really digging deep into that, I'm sure is a super helpful process, which I'm sure is probably something that you're going to be digging into a little bit here with Kelsey, is just thinking about what it would look like and when's the right time for it.
Yeah, you will get a taste of it for sure.
Yeah. So I'm excited to kind of see this and unfold. So Kelsey, tell us a bit more about you. Again, we do these pre-shows, everybody. So everybody gets a chance to introduce a little bit and kind of get a bit of guidance. But also, I know, for instance, I've spoken with Leni a few times. Kelsey spoke with her a bit before. We always find out new information, new things are kind of unfolding in these pieces where we get to talk about it. So Kelsey, please share with us kind of like your journey to where you are, why this is your passion, what it is that you love doing, what are the transformations that you love to see for your clients. And ultimately, I'm sure that happened, like for all of us, there is a transformation piece that happens for us too when we do it, right? So please share that.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Leni, I'm so excited. Like all of these, I'm just like, yes. Everything she's saying, the intentional, the colors, I'm like, yes. So I'm so excited. Okay, so yeah, my journey was pretty interesting. So I grew up and and it matters because I grew up with a single mom, drug addict dad. I'm really like a rags to riches stories. So we didn't have much growing up. I remember there were times where we had no electricity. My mom didn't get the bills paid. And she was like, oh, we're having like candle night dinner. She would like really play it off like that. And so I, as much as great as she was, things like that, she really did want me to have a very safe life, right? She wanted me to go to school, go to college, have a safe life. And when I was 17, I decided to follow my stepdad's path and become a respiratory therapist. And then I lost my mom. So she passed away and I went on a little bit of a journey. I started working in the hospital, was making, good money, like $25 an hour. I'm 18 years old. I'm grieving my mom's death. And right, she was my single mom, my best friend. And I ended up becoming a respiratory therapist. And it was my dream, and anything that I do, like I got to be the best at it, right? So we're 40 in the class. We only graduate 8 of us, and 2 people get both spots at both hospitals, and I'm one of them, right? So like I hustled, I worked my butt off, I got the job, and it's like a 6-figure salary. And again, it was beautiful. I've got people dying in my hands, the wife crying, me bringing him back to life, or doing my best. I'm in labor and delivery. I'm watching babies being delivered. Again, babies being brought to me, mom's crying, I'm bringing the baby back to death. It was high paced, it was high adrenaline, and I loved it on some level. And then I get pregnant and immediately I have to stop working at 22 weeks. My body is under constant stress. I'm having constant contractions, all the things. And I never went back. I had my son and I realized that my body, although my mind loved it, my body was telling me that this was too much stress, that I was way too sensitive to be having this happen to me. And I started listening to podcasts. I'm on maternity leave and I'm a go-getter. So I'm listening to podcasts. It's, where my son is at the 6-week mark. I start studying to become a personal trainer. I start posting on Instagram every single day. I'm listening to the personal development podcast. And then I start getting these images of this vision and this life that I could have, and this life that I never thought was possible, right? And I'm obsessed with Tony Robbins. I'm like, I want to do that, and I want to do this, and I'm going to be a life coach. And I start doing it, and I start building it, and my following starts growing, and I start bringing in clients, and it takes me 6 months to get to 6 figures and to be invited to speak in LA. And it was just like more than I could have ever imagined. And what happened? I dropped it all and I sabotaged it all because I didn't think that I was deserving it. Because deep down internally, I was still that little girl that grew up with absolutely nothing, right? And so it led me down this crazy path of like understanding the unconscious mind, understanding these patterns, understanding success and why some people build success and some people don't, and why some people make it and some people stay stuck in the job that they don't like, the relationship they don't like, and all the things, right? And so then I started my school and I started teaching these girls. And now I have this company where all I want to do is just grab all these women who had these big dreams. And I'm just like, yo, let's go, let's make it happen. Like, if I'm flying first class, you're flying first class. That's it, So that's kind of the path that brought me here. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. See, again, I always learn something new because I've talked with you before. I've checked you out. We did pre-show conversation. So even more in depth. And I also just have to say to everybody, thank you so much always to you guys as guests and others for revealing to all of us, like all of the parts of it, because you're right. Kelsey, it is important because it doesn't matter where we came from necessarily in the grand scheme of like who else can accomplish, but it is an important story to understand what our driver was, and for people to relate in any different way they can, right? So everybody's struggles is everybody's struggles, and we're entitled to them. And the worst thing that's happened to you to date is the worst thing. It's valid, it's for you. But knowing that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can still do that. Even if you were born with, I don't know, the silver spoon in your mouth, so to speak, there are things to overcome in that too. There are these pieces, these traumas, which is why I think the things that you talk about, Kelsey, tackling that, and also Leni, with you as well, right? Like you unpack those things with people when you're doing that, getting them to this pieces of, what's the retreat going to look like? What do I want? What's in me that maybe is going to hold me back from seeing the full vision so we can fulfill it? And even for myself, I don't do personal coaching per se, but it's never lost on me that when I ask people to go out and go big and tell me like, what's your about, what's your why, let's dig into all of that so we can kind of bring it in, tie it all in, make sure it's all tying in and fitting together with all the pieces of you. We're really blessed to know those things. And so I thank everybody for sharing it live on air with people, because there's a lot of intimate pieces to it, right? That they're important, they're relevant, and not everybody gets to see them. They just see this outward place that we are right now. And that's really the goal in the podcast, is to show constantly this growth, but also that we come from so many different places. We're coming at it from so many different angles. But at the end of the day, we're all searching for, pretty much the same things, to impact others, because we've gone through these growth and these changes, and we know kind of how that works. And so we just want to share that with people. So thank you guys for that. We will gracefully segue into our seeker solver piece. So I like to pop in every once in a while with some questions and stuff, but mainly I let you guys kind of go at this so that Leni can ask you some questions, and Kelsey too can ask some questions, and then you guys can kind of figure out some of these pieces together before the end of this segment.
All right. So here we are, ready to dive into this beautiful journey of what creating a retreat is and what the purpose out of it comes, like why you're really doing it. So actually, I would like to, before starting with a question, I would like to actually start with a request. I know it's a little bit different. Don't worry, it's nothing crazy. You don't have to put yourself on your head or anything like that. No squats. It's all very, very gentle, because for me, I love gentle things. I've learned through so many different practices that for me, compassion, gentleness, and love and softness, this is my path to healing. Some people need to get spanked to heal. Me, I've had enough of that in my life. So for me now, not so much. So I want to start with a request, so we can go into this conversation and really get to a point where there is some information comes from our hearts for these retreats, right? So I would like to ask you to just, first of all, just take 3 very, very deep breaths and really connect with your heart, like feel the energy of your heart, the heart here in the center, not the actual one, so just I think it's worth explaining, our energetic heart, and just connect with it and really feel the energy of your heart pumping, and the energy of love and like unlimited possibilities, right? Like everything is possible within our field, and we can create anything that we desire, and really connect with it, and just ask very, very softly to your heart and to your higher self that whatever ideas come out of this are on your highest and best interest, because I think this is something that is very important. So just ask for best and highest interest for yourself and for the people that you're serving, because at the end of the day, we're always serving someone. And then I'm going to ask you to ask your mind to actually remove any expectations on like, how many people do you want your retreat? Like what does success looks like in numbers, but more, and then just go back to your heart and ask your heart to show you what success looks like when you're actually creating and planting a seed on other people. Just that, just with a lot of heart, compassion, a lot of love, just bringing back the energy into our hearts to make sure that whatever comes out of here, it's just from a place of love, nothing else but love. Thank you. So thank you for joining me in this very small journey, just to connect, and then really to ask our hearts to be the ones creating this new path into retreat planning, right? And then I will ask you some questions and just answer from your heart, whatever comes first. Usually the heart answers in very little words. The mind usually gives you full long sentences, and your heart is just like short sentence, very clear to the point. So my first question would be, why do you want to do a retreat? What's the purpose of planning a retreat?
This is going to make me cry because I'm very connected to my heart. I want to see people transform. Nothing makes me happier than watching someone go from this place of being stuck and unhappy to living their best life. Like I said, I watch my girls in my group coaching and I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm just crying on the call because they're completely different, and it's like, and I know what it is to live a life of inauthenticity and of shoulds, and what it is to live a life like this, where I'm just like every day crying because I'm so happy. I want that for everybody.
That's beautiful. This is a perfect purpose, and this is the seed that you have to plant in any retreat that you do. Okay. So, and in everything you do, but now because we're honing into the retreat, so I don't go off path, because I can do that very easily. So this is definitely the seed that you want to plant for everything that you do on your retreat. And whenever you have a question, is this the way I should do it? Is this what I should incorporate? You go back to this question. Is this choice that I'm making or decision on something as simple as the itinerary or the location, is this serving my purpose of transformation, of providing transformation for other people? If the answer is no, you remove it right there. And this is it's a very simple way to really find these ways for you to connect and know if this is something right or not. I'm going to talk about, for example, a question that you can ask yourself is, do you see plant medicine as a transformational tool that you would use for a retreat? Then, no. Yeah, see, you already have a very clear answer, because usually this is a very yes or no, very straightforward question, right? So this is the type of questions that I would invite you to ask when you're planning a retreat. And if the answer is no, and that doesn't matter, the best shaman comes to your life and tells you this is really going to transform them, you already know in your heart that it's not. So then that's not your path. It might be the shaman's path. It's okay, but it's not yours, right? So when we come into retreat planning, this is the most important part. Like really everything else is just technical things that can be done. But the most important part is the purpose. And then when you're coming into creating something, right? So I'm going to ask another question, just to see how it feels. So when you envision a retreat, and I know you want to do transformation for as many women as possible, really in your heart, we're going to think about like a first retreat, okay? So then it can expand into series of retreats, but let's think about this first retreat that you're going to host. When you close your eyes and you ask your heart, how many people do you really feel you can serve fully into this retreat?
Yeah, so this was interesting because two things are coming up. So initially I was like 500 people when we were first talking, but when you asked me to connect to my heart, it said like 50. And it's like a much more like exclusive, smaller transformation. What's also coming through is that it's meant to be men and women, which is so funny because I used to only work with men, and then I only work with women, but I want both. And that's really interesting. So now I'm like, it's got to be a completely different name because new feminine. That's not what we want. We want that,
Men have a feminine energy and women have a masculine energy.
For
so
sure.
I understand where you're coming from, but also and then we can talk a little bit about branding strategies. But when you're creating a branding strategy for a retreat, it can have a completely different name, and it's coming from your school, but it doesn't mean it needs to be called a New Feminine Retreat.
Yeah, true.
So yes, basically, okay, perfect. So you're thinking more like 50 people. This also feels a little bit more aligned with my heart, like, because when I'm doing this, I also tap into the energy of like the space and the people. No, it's not just me listening, but I do feel that for a first retreat, smaller containers are usually better, because the more people you have, yes, there can be a lot of transformation, and for sure it happens, but there's also a lot of space for wilderness to happen. You know, there's so many things that can get out of control when you have so many people. For me, ideally, usually you scale up, right? For me, the best retreats on like really, really transformational, deep stuff, unless you're going to a really Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat with 1,500 people, but you're doing like really deep, actually, they're usually between 15 to 27 people. And this is the space where I've seen that the teacher, also depends on how many teachers and you have and everything, but the energy of the group is still quite contained. You want to keep them in line, you know, when you're doing a retreat, you kind of hurdle them a little bit like sheep in a beautiful way, very, very soft. But if you have so many people, then their minds start popping, and then there's all these ideas, and then naughtiness comes through. No? So if you have a retreat that is alcohol free, then if you have 50 people, the chances for people sneaking in alcohol are higher. You know, it's just as an example, as simple as this one, right? So I always think that the right number of people who's supposed to come to your retreat will. Like I did once a retreat for women. It was called Authentic Women. It was absolutely beautiful and transformational. And we were actually expecting quite a few more people. But at the end of the day, it turned out that we were 13 people. Very special number, because there's 13 moons. So actually each person ended up representing the archetype of one of the moons of the year, without even us planning it or doing anything to actually facilitate it in that way. Just the energy in the universe told us this is what's supposed to happen, and it just did. You know, people canceled, some people joined last minute. It just like all worked out in this very interesting, different way that we didn't think about, but it was just the perfect amount of people. So at the end of the day, I feel that we can always say these expectations of numbers, and it's great to give the universe a goal and say like, hey, I want at least this amount of people, no? Like minimum, I want 25, minimum, I want 50. But then at the end of the day, the universe knows better than you. You know, if you're not, like, if for some reason you're not supposed to have 50 and you're supposed to have 44 because of the numbers and everything, how it works, it's going to be that way. And there's nothing you can do about it, you know, because you need to trust, you know, at the end of the day, you need to trust on how you do it. So for me, I think it is something that's very, very important when you come to this part, and, you know, always going back to this question, is this number some people that I'm going to be able to provide enough transformation, you know, and am I going to be able to be present for all of them, and can I really give my best self to them in this scenario? And then also, because sometimes when it's the first one, you want to make sure that you're giving your best and you're learning from all this space, and it's really a learning opportunity, because you don't know what's going to happen. Retreats are wild. Retreats are wild, and I've been myself to so many, like as an attendee, and I've planned so many that I can tell you anything can happen. Anything can happen. There's always learning, you know, like it's crazy. Even the animals that you see on a retreat, they give you a message. It's like that, because the energy and the presence of the people is there. But for you to have these people, they're giving their presence, you need to give them yours. Yeah. I think this is something that I wanted to touch base on for anything that is retreat planning wise, and anything really, no? If you want something,
I guess you can only bring in so many people, right? Like you can set the intention for it, but at the end of the day, the energies of all the people that come in are going to naturally shift it. And then as they shift and have these experiences through it, that continuously is changing that energy of it. right? So you have to think about that structure to be able to hold it and contain it and keep it on track as those are happening, that all the things that you can't anticipate.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting story. That's a very interesting thing that I've not thought of. And when I think of hosting events, I don't necessarily think like overnight type events. Like I feel like that energy is not, that's not my vibe at all. Like that, again, that feels like there's a lot of like things that can just happen. I'm like, for me, it's like you show up in the morning, you know, you come, it's a day, like maybe a full day immersion or 3-day immersion, and you go sleep somewhere else. And like, you know what I mean? It's like overnight, I'm like in peace on my own. This is definitely what I envisioned too, but 100% I didn't think of, it's a lot of different energies, a lot of stuff can happen. And for sure, the more people you get, like you said, the naughtier, rowdier, however you want to say it, it can get, right? So yeah, true. Very true.
So I think it's worth considering also always when you're planning a retreat, if it's a place where people sleep and they stay overnight, or if they go and come. There is some pros and cons when it comes to both of them, right? So when they're sleeping in one place, well, you need to cater for like breakfast, lunch, dinner. If something happens during the night, there needs to be someone on the schedule. I planned so many retreats where I don't stay on site, like I stay outside, because then the energy of, you know, you kind of keep your own energy separate, but then there is staff in the house, no? So because I do a lot of like in private, like houses are like super luxury. So then you stay outside and then the guests are staying there, and then you come in the morning. So you can have this balance of not you being there, but also still having them there. If you do day camps, like 3 consecutive days, the reality is that they can be transformational, but you get a lot of wild gooses again, because you don't know what they're going to go do during the evening. Imagine doing this in Playa del Carmen, right? So you have Playa del Carmen, super nice restaurants, a lot of drinks, a lot of party. So you have someone who's coming to do transformational work. They open up their hearts. They start doing transformation day 1. And then in the evening, they're like, okay, we're done for the day. Let's go drink some wine. Let's go party. And the next day, when they come back, the energetic level of their lives, like their vibration is super low, because you had alcohol, strangers, so many things going around. So for me, my personal favorite is when people stay in one place and then I stay somewhere else. So then I can still maintain my energy, but then you contain the energy of them. Or you do like day camps. So you do one full day of transformation, but by the time they're checking out, they've done the transformation. But this depends on your program and your offerings. If it's something that you can, in let's say 12 hours or 8 hours, you can provide full transformation, then I would recommend more to like do it more as like as an intensive boot camp kind of situation. So you don't have the energy shifting in and out. Like I planned so many retreats in this space called Amate Camp in Tepoztlan. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's super nice in the mountains. And it's a place that is actually privatized for retreats, and it's closed doors. So once you come in, you don't go out until the end of the retreat. Yeah, the door is locked. I'm telling you, the door is locked. Like, of course you can open it, no, but because you really keep the energy of the space. And we've noticed that when we've done the exception of like, oh, one person leaves in the place, so they want to come and go. Their transformation is completely different and at such a lower level than everyone else, because they're going outside into the regular life, you know, the light stimulation, they're going into traffic, they're going into like, maybe they see their husbands, they get upset, you know, like all these kind of little things come into the play. So I think it's something that's worth really, once you're like really honing in into the whole retreat, how do you actually see your retreat happening, and how many days based on what you need to give them. And I always like to advise people to give time for integration, because, you know, I have done, there's so many times that you do so much transformation, and then you're done, you know, you're transformed, amazing. And then you're like kicked out into the streets. And you're going through two processes. When you move emotions, it's not like you move them and you can give them a timeline, you know? And this is something that you're serving your retreaters, right? Like the people who are attending your events, because it's something that I think is very fair. It's very natural and necessary. For me, I always incorporate massage time. This is my favorite. So everyone gets a massage during the retreat. That's it. And there's free time between people doing one massage and the other. So then they have kind of like a free afternoon to really contemplate. They can journal, they can do whatever they want, but there's like free time. And then, just getting a massage is so pampering. It's just like so nurturing for your soul. So yeah, for me, my favorite is to bring massage into the table. But this is like something that each person can do differently, right? Like some people may have an art class, and this is some time to integrate stuff, like really get you out of your mind. There's so many different creative ways that can be done.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to think about that concept, right? Of like, do you let them leave the space? And then how do you think about when they come back in the next day, if it's multiple day, how do you reintegrate them back into the space where they were before, right? So it's like, if you're watching a movie, right, and you put it on pause, right? Like how much time before when you press on pause, did you forget, or kind of move out of the headspace of the story and the things going on, because now you're in your story. So thinking about how do you is there a place you do a recap if that's the way you want to do it? And then the other thing too, about actually giving them a plan on how to reintegrate so that they don't have to, so they can figure out how to take the changes and transformations they've had and not just like leave them there and move on, right? Because sometimes when we've made a change or transformation, we lead by example. And so when we go out in a different way, people are still treating us this other, from this other vibration in place, and they're not necessarily going to fall in line right away. How do you reintegrate yourself into that and allow that process to continue happening? How do you do those things? It's important. I wouldn't have thought about it till now to give the tools for all of those scenarios. So thanks for bringing that up, because just even thinking about it in everyday stuff we do, like just the yoga class you go to, right? Like that feels like the thing. And then how do you go back out into the world, still maintaining that place and that vibration and that openness that you went there for, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
I can give you a super short example of something that we worked on. So we had a client, and she was doing private ceremonies. So it's like retreats, like 1-day retreats with plant medicine. She's like an amazing woman, right? And her like the situation she was going through, it was that actually people kept just texting her and asking her all these questions on like, oh, what happened after this? Like, I don't know, I'm feeling this. So she would end up jumping on 2-hour calls quite a few times with each client. And she has like clients almost every day, because she's very well seeked, because she is very, very good. And she was like, how do I do this? Like I feel bad because they need an integration. Like I know they're integrating everything that happened, but at the same time, how do I manage it time-wise? Like that I give them what they deserve, but at the same time, they're not taking away from my life, because it was taking over her life. So it became a situation, it was like really something that was bugging her.
Like a post-event thing, like how do you,
Exactly. So our suggestion was really into this space where we told her, okay, so what you have to do is you have to include in your package an integration session. And this is an integration session that is booked in advance, that you have a certain amount of time, and that in your price, you're going to be charging for it. It's not going to be free. And if they want more, then they can add more. But it's something that is like, you're going to give them a full package that includes it, but you're not going to give it for free, because now you're giving it for free and it's taking your time. So you're going to do that. And then you're going to bring in this integration piece that is going to really free up your time in a beautiful way. And it's honoring to you as well, right? Because you're doing the work, you're giving all this advice, you're really holding space for them. But what are you getting in return? Because these are our ceremonies that you do maybe once a year, or it's not like they keep coming, but it's like a year later they come back, no? So it's not like, oh, it's going to be a recurring client that comes every month, so it's okay. And even in that case, it's not. So kind of asking all these questions of like, how does, like for me, I like to do something is I have like the pre-retreat. So this is like, let's call it a discovery call where we talk about like what you would like to do. Then we have the before the retreat happening. Then we have the retreat, and then we see how do we create and how do we expand, and what happens after a retreat happens, because a retreat doesn't end when the people leave the room.
Yeah. And I can already feel, so like a couple things. So one, I'm feeling like everything that you're talking about is really reminding me of the masculine feminine dynamic. So everything we're creating, the container, it's really the masculine holding in that space. And then I'm already thinking, so like, I would not do one-off integration sessions. I would do like a group, maybe a couple group sessions and something like that. I can already see that, because that does make a lot of sense. I've been to the things that I've heard about people when they go to these big events is that it's great when you're there, but then you go home and then it goes away, and that's not what you want, right? Like you really want it to be this, again, this transformational thing where someone can look back and go, whoa, I had this transformation and maybe I was supported for a couple months and my entire life shifted, right? So that's, like you said, it's like, what am I looking for? Transformation. What's going to bring that?
Yes. So I went to this meditation retreat with this amazing teacher. His name is Juan Lucas Martin, and he lives in Mexico. And he does a bunch of retreats around the country and in other places in Latin America and everything. And he's just great. And you know what? One thing he said one day, he was like, you come to the first retreat, you're very welcome. I'm very happy that you're here. You're coming to practice what you learned in the course. You come the second time, fine. You want to refresh the information a little bit and maybe maybe you missed a detail here and there. You come a third time, you're not welcome. You're not welcome in the retreat. And I was at the beginning, I was like, why is he saying this? And he said, this program and these ideas and meditation and techniques that I'm teaching you is for you to take into your daily life. If you have to come back every 6 months to do a refresher on this, it means you're not doing it in your house. So then it means this work doesn't serve you. So why would I take your money?
Yeah.
I don't want people who come for like 10, 12, 11 retreats just because of the hyper of going to retreats. If you're coming, it's because you need to learn something. And if you didn't, then you come once more, but then no more. That's it. If you didn't learn, maybe this is not the technique for you,
Yeah. And I love that. And that to me is someone who's in integrity. And I'm the same way with my clients. I don't want you here all the time. Help you, fly on your own. Right. So I do like that. And I do appreciate that. And it's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's different if you have different types of retreats that are meant to bring about different changes. But if it's the same thing, right? Like if it's kind of like what you might call like an evergreen thing, and then the same people keep coming back, you have to sit there and wonder like, why are they coming back? Like I've been in coaching programs where it's like, it's, whatever, a 3 or a 6 month. And you're like, why are there some people in here and there's their third round and they're like, the program hasn't changed. Like, what is going on? Like as a coach, how could you even accept it? Right. It's not like it's a continuation of, they're literally still stuck in the same place that everybody else is stuck in the beginning, only like three rounds in. And you're like, this doesn't feel ethical for one thing.
No.
You're like, what's the point? So Kelsey, let me ask you to kind of wrap things up a little bit with it. I know I learned a lot. I know you did too, because I can see you going like, yeah, right. There's so many things that we don't think about. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about it? How has it shifted what you're thinking about as far as like planning it or maybe the timing? And do you have like a quick last question or two for Leni before we kind of sign off on this piece of it?
Yeah, well, I feel like my entire image of it has completely shifted for what I want it to look like. Yay. So now I do want it to be overnight. I'm like, yes, it's going to be overnight. There's going to be massages on the second day. I'm actually seeing all of it. Like, because again, so a lot of what I teach is to be like the fullest embodiment of yourself. And a lot of what I do teach women too is to like wear the beautiful underwear and to do your makeup and to have your hair and all those things. So it's like, I truly want them to come, go through the inner work, the business stuff, the things that they need. And then on the second day, it really is, I'm literally envisioning like massage, your hair done. There's clothes that you could buy and leave with, you know what I mean? And like, you're literally leaving an entirely new woman, like a new identity, like, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that was in me until now. right? And I'm already thinking, okay, I've got content and this and that. My mind is just like, that's just like the CEO.
The brain just exploded, right?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, this is exciting. I think that my question would be, at which point, because here's my thing, okay? So I just onboarded like 3 instructors, onboarding another one. I'm constantly just moving, right? But we're also growing this brand. So it's like there's the brand awareness and there's all these things. And it's like, for you, when you work with someone, what do you think is the right time for them to be like, okay, it's time for me to do a retreat that's actually going to sell and be great and, be good for the people, but also for the brand, right? Because again, I know that a retreat can cost a lot of money, right? So it's like, at what point, because this is the thing, is you don't want to pour a bunch of your cash flow into an event. And again, as much as you want the transformations, things like that, we still need to also be smart businesswoman, right? It's like, at what point is it the right point, right?
And if I can just add another piece there, or ask another portion of it, is it, or maybe to clarify it a little bit for how I would think about it, a retreat wouldn't be used to create the brand awareness or create the community. I see these retreats as being something like where you bring the community together and they're wanting more of that community and that space in person.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what I feel too.
Yeah. Is that a flow that you think is how it works, Leni? Or do you think it could be either or?
It can be either off or really so the way I see it is either you create a brand from your retreats. Let's say, I'm going to give an example of like a yoga teacher. No? So yoga teachers, they usually start with the studio and then they will have some followers on the studio and they might be able to come to the first retreat. But for the second retreat, you probably need new people and new and fresh blood. So the people who came to your retreat that might be new, and then if you do like a marketing campaign, etc., beyond that, the idea is that people new also come to the pod. It really, there is an aspect that I will just detail now, but you want to make sure that these people who are coming, the new ones, will become part of your school, of your university, right? So for me, I work it both ways. I don't just say, oh, it's only for people, unless it's a very specialized program that you need to have some pre-knowledge to come to this retreat, then yes, it's only people in your community. But if you are opening it up and then from here they could also join your university, then why not? If they want to come, let them come.
Like kickstart them into the journey of going on this path and journey, right? So it can be both. See, that's why I asked the question, because I was like, in my mind, I feel like, but I know I'm not always right, so I have to ask. But you're right, it would be a good kickstart too, to come into this to this place and into that new feminine, right? To really be introduced into it and come into that university piece and all of those things.
And then Kelsey, for your question, just to answer very shortly, usually the right moment to do a retreat, and it's when your heart feels it's the right moment to do a retreat, because I know there is all these micro communities, and you can be a micro influencer and have 500 people following you on Instagram and have full retreats. That's not a thing. And you can have millions of people and not feel your retreats, because it's all about the energy that you're putting into it. Mm-hmm. So when you're planning a retreat, you need to just and there's some technical parts where you get a timeline and you get certain expectations to make sure that you meet your financial goals. And I this is something I guide people through, but in this beginning part where you're birthing this project and this idea and this creation, this idea, this retreat, it's a baby, you're really creating a baby out of nothing. It has to be when your heart feels right. And sometimes we just push ourselves because we think this is the next step for my business. And maybe it's not. And there is sometimes work that needs to be done with abundance or with self-worth, because you can have a lot of self-worth for certain things, but maybe you don't feel you're such a great host. So then you're having questions about self-doubt, no? And then you need to work on that. And once you past that, then there is a moment where you just feel like, yes. And then the great idea for the project that fulfills your purpose comes into the space, you know. For me, I already see something very clear for your path for retreats, is that you can create concepts based on your archetypes. So you can create different retreats based on your archetypes. And I think it's something super beautiful, no? And that you can just bridge, and then you do the first archetype where you see most of your students are in that point, you know? So if it's mainly moms, then you do your first retreat on moms. And then this is a strategy for you to actually hone in into the right community and to actually feel your retreat. And as I said, the first retreat doesn't have to be 50 people. It can be 15, it can be 20, it can be a couple. You can, you know, there's private retreats that are like 1 week long for just couples. There's couples who come and do retreats just to like, so they have a nice divorce, you know, they come to close the paths. There's unlimited possibilities. So you can even test with like a group of 4 or 5 or 6 people, a super small retreat, and then try it out, see what works, what doesn't, how does it feel in your body. And then, you know, you can even do a retreat with your all your trainers, and just do a retreat to create a retreat. You know?
Thank you so much, Leni. That makes so much sense, all of it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I know I took away a lot, and I wasn't even, I mean, I'm not thinking about doing a retreat right now. Don't get all excited. I know everybody wants to come. But
well, whenever you're ready, I'm here for you.
Absolutely. But I know Kelsey, who is, and other people who might be thinking about it, inspired about it. There's just so like there's so much here. So thank you guys both so much. So let's do a quick wrap up, just a quick, like, how do we get a hold of you? Anything special you want to talk about? And again, these will be shared in show notes with those of you listening at home when this airs. So let's start with you, Leni. How do we get a hold of you?
Perfect. So you can get a hold of me on either my website, that is theretreatplanner.com. So very simple. And my Instagram handle is also the Retreat Planner. So either way, you can just reach out to me over there. You can book a discovery call, and we can jump on a call and just see, you know, if there's anything worth discussing further. And yeah, that's the best way to reach me. And then from there, well, I just want to let you know that, yeah, so basically what I'm doing is I'm doing private and corporate retreats on site. So I take over the whole thing and come into the creative platform, create, and then also get the execution part done. And I do it worldwide. So I'm actually looking into some probably like very likely events in Egypt and Sharjah for Q4 this year or early Q1 next year. So a lot of things happening, you know, like really niche, beautiful events, really like on the very special immersive experiences. So super thrilled about that. And then I will be launching very, very shortly by the end of the summer, my online retreat that is called Mastering the Art of Retreat Planning. So this is an online retreat where you will be able to hop on and have a mix of rituals and technical information for you to learn how to plan your retreat. And by the end of these 3 days, you will come out with a full purpose of why you're doing this retreat and an actual retreat already planned, ready to launch. You might just need to book the place where they're going to stay, but that's it. Everything else is going to be taken care of during these 3 days. So it's just such a wonderful opportunity for anyone who's looking to create retreats or actually get into the retreat planning business. That it's also something that I'm just creating as a new trend in the world.
Awesome. Fantastic. Would that be a kind of retreat that she would maybe bring team members to? Because obviously she'd be using them to help her probably with those pieces. So would that make sense for somebody to do that as well?
Yes, it definitely makes sense to bring your team. So if you're like, and mainly like the creative part of the team and the executional part of the team, right? So these two sides are the most important ones. Some other people might not need to come, but anyone who is creating things with you or it has this is in this space, definitely, because imagine if you're already super powerful, connected to your heart and everything that's happening, and then you have all the other people that are super connected to their hearts, bringing in the ideas and creating a retreat that is going to be something that people are never going to forget about, you know, because you're going to mark them for life in a positive way. I just have to say this. Please hear me out. Positive way. No, not that. No traumas or, you know, anything like that. So yes, this is definitely something that teams can attend to really learn. And then actually later on, the idea is that you get to delegate those, no? And you're not the one doing all the retreats and coming through this creative process. It's going to be super beautiful, you know, like sound healing experiences, voice activation, yoga classes to really connect with their heart, and then the whole business financial part behind on like all the tools, tips and tricks that I have to make a retreat successful and very easy to manage. So you don't lose your head and spend all your time actually doing all this planning and all these kind of details. So we go through all these like shortcuts for you to like already know what you want, how do you want it, and then really visualizing it and bringing it into reality.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Leni. And Kelsey, let's finish off with you. Share with us how we can get a hold of you.
Yes. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Leni. That was so beautiful. And the last part about the archetypes, I'm just like, you're so good at what you do. You are obviously also embodied in your purpose. And I think that's so great. And even you were talking about the retreat, like the retreat to learn how to do retreats. So I'm like, that sounds amazing. So you guys can honestly find me. You can find me on my website, newfeminine.co, but come find me on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram. That's where I hang out. Send me a message. Ultimately, you know, when you come work with me, you join our rite of passage. I teach you the foundational, energetic, and structural basics to get to 10K months. So to start building that freedom for yourself, it's the perfect balance of woo plus the real stuff. We've got the perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine. So you're going to, you know, actually take the action that you need to take and actually find the worth to receive all the things that your beautiful masculine is putting so much work into creating for you, right? It goes both ways. So that's our rite of passage. It's absolutely incredible. There's so much value just on my TikTok is growing and on my Instagram and all the things. So just come hang out, come watch the stories, come send me a message. And I trust that everyone who's ready for this knows when they're ready and they know when to reach out to me. And I'm kind of one of those coaches that people get on the phone with me and they're like, I don't know who you are, but God said you, or the universe sent me to you, and I don't even know you, but let's do this. So I know that whoever's meant to find me will. So thank you so much. This was amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you guys again so much. It was such a pleasure to have you guys on here and kind of go through this with you guys, hear about it. I learned so much, and I look forward to having you guys on again soon, and obviously following and seeing all of the wonderful things that you guys will continue to get up to. Hey, thank you for listening to The Shift with myself, Kelly McNicoll. I would love it if you could go to your favorite podcast app or the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a review. Your feedback is always valuable, and it'll help us reach more people and make an impact. So we'll see you back here next week. And remember, you don't always have to know exactly where you're going, but if you get up and show up every day in whatever way you can, and you do it with an open mind and heart, rooted in your values, mission, and with intention, then you will always find yourself exactly where you're supposed to be. I promise.